Welcome to the Athlete Insights Podcast, hosted by Yash Day, a podcast focused on letting athletes tell their journeys in their sport. This podcast is presented by Boxed Water. Boxed water is better.
Welcome into another episode of the Athlete Insights Podcast. Today I've got my guest, Tim Reusche. He's the Director of Creative Video at the University of Missouri Athletic Department. So Tim, appreciate you. I know you got some time off now. You were talking before. You kind of periodically taking some time off now, and as it's kind of slowed down over the summer. But I appreciate you kind of taking that time to chop it up with me here, man. Appreciate that. So.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me on, Yash.
Yeah. So as I do with my guests, traditionally, like, want to go back to before we talk about kind of your video career, kind of what you've done in sports video. I want to take it back to kind of your memory as an athlete or playing sports. So can you talk about kind of your earliest memory with sport? Kind of what was that, and kind of what led you to that?
Yeah, I think just early on, I remember my parents signed me up for just, baseball, t-ball growing up, and just sort of going from there. I
Gotcha.
was somebody where I didn't do a lot of sports growing up. I
Okay.
didn't really start playing like basketball until middle school. For a while, I just swam, but I never really took it serious. But my parents always wanted me doing something,
Mhm.
fall, winter, and summer.
Mhm.
Um, I never played soccer too, which I know is something that, a lot of people just play growing up. So a little
Yeah.
random, I guess, like fun fact in a sense. But I just remember, yeah, baseball, growing up early on, and
Yeah.
then sort of branching out. I remember like flag football a lot.
Mhm.
I played tackle football my 8th grade year, but
Yeah.
really my athletic career, I guess, ended way before high school. I mean, I technically made the B team
Mhm.
at Glenburg South High School for volleyball, but
Got
I
you.
never made varsity or anything. I played like club volleyball from time to time and played travel basketball a summer somehow in high school. But
Yeah.
yeah, I never played varsity for my team. So my athletic career ended real soon.
And how did you talk about your athletic career ending, but that was kind of the start of you getting into video and the video production side of things. How did that start? Had that come off? Did that come right after you stopped playing? Kind of how did your video production career start?
Yeah,
And
my parents had like a little camcorder that I would make YouTube videos with my friends.
gotcha.
Those thankfully are not on the internet anymore. My parents told me to get rid of them before I got into high school.
Yeah.
So that was real smart, especially now with the addition of archive.org, where you can basically look up anything from the past however many years. But my stuff that went on YouTube in 2008 is totally gone. So I guess that's good. But really then when I went to Glenburg South, I was able to sort of hone and like learn more. And it wasn't just, making silly YouTube videos with my friends, but it was more so figuring out the structure, how shot composition works, all that, learning about like inserting graphics into videos and whatnot,
Gotcha.
and just storytelling from that sense. But I was fortunate to have a high school in Glenburg South where they offered that. There was an opening to
That's what I
run.
was going to kind of get to, because when I was
Yeah,
in high school in Cincinnati, they offered a broadcast journalism class, and that's kind of what led me to. I know we're both Ball State alums, so that kind of what led me to Ball State in that regard in the journalism program. And so it's cool to kind of see how, especially being at a high school that offered that, and kind of honed your passion early on, allowed you to kind of flow into what you're doing now. It's great to see. But sorry, carry on.
yeah, no, I think it's also interesting too now, Yash.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how often like you talk to people like about this stuff, but like there's so many different levels that like schools offer, whether like it's something
Mhm.
like really elaborate, similar to like what we saw at Ball State, to even just like saying, hey, here's a camera and you can like record the football game. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting seeing how that has just developed, throughout our time.
For sure, for sure. And kind of when you were honing those skills in high school, kind of when you were starting out, you said your parents had a little camcorder, and you worked through that. What challenges did you have early on with some of that stuff? Or did you have any kind of challenges that you um had to overcome over that stuff?
Well, I guess in high school, it was just like I was around people that they had equipment that was similar, if not better, to like what we use
Hmm.
in the high school.
Got you.
Um, and so like I was kind of just like almost constrained to that in a sense, which I mean isn't bad, but like you just see how that sort of permeates to like the whole field as a whole now, where a lot of these high school kids, they have the same setup that, these high-end D1 colleges do with a A7S3. They got
Yep.
a 24-70 lens, 70 to 200, some kind of nice shotgun Rode mic that they have,
Yep.
setup runs, around $7,000,
Hmm.
which is, incredible to think about. But I think it was just more so, not necessarily being like limited, but
Hmm.
just like growing on my own in a sense in creating all this content. Sorry, right now, I'm watching the hometown Chicago Sky. I just wanted the buzzer there.
No, you're good. No, no, you're good, dude. Uh,
Um,
oh,
but yeah, that was definitely one of, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I would probably just say just the equipment and whatnot and learning on the fly, because like you had to work your way up. There's like the intro level to broadcasting,
yep.
and there was like beginning TV, and then there's advanced TV. And by the time I got to advanced TV, like everybody has been in there longer than me.
Yeah.
A lot of them had like their own personal stuff, and so it's just sort of learning on the fly in a sense. And you don't
Gotcha.
really realize it till after the fact. I guess just like how much learning, and practice you have to do on your own, like outside of the classroom.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then you ended up at Ball State, like we did. So I mentioned earlier, we're both Ball State alums here. And you were part of the Sports Links program, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken on that regard. But what did you take away from your time at Ball State? Kind of how did that help you get to where you are today with Mizzou? And I know you've had other experiences that we'll talk about here soon, but how is Ball State specifically? What lessons did you take away from that you still carry today working at Mizzou?
Yeah, I think Chris Taylor sort of had the roadmap or laid the foundation to like what it takes to build a successful program in an athletic department.
Mhm.
The come up, so to say, I guess I had with SportsLink, I got in my sophomore year, and so was in there for 3 years. But I learned from that side, just like academically, sort of how they're involved. And once I got in the working world, I was on the athletic side, so just sort of seeing
Mhm.
the difference between the two in a sense. But I just think the main thing, just learning how to get experience and whatnot. I think what Chris Taylor did a really good job of was having kids earn their way up. So the thing I run into now is a lot of kids say, hey, I want to shoot football, or I want to shoot like men's basketball, right?
Yep.
And the way I sort of worked my way up there was attaching on to the volleyball teams there. Ball State has a men's and a women's volleyball team, and that was just an outlet that I saw where I could work my way up because not as many kids were interested in that. Everybody wanted to work, Saturdays in Schumann.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, prove my worth that way. And then my junior year was able to sort of lead the shooters there for a football game, which I thought was great.
Mhm.
But in a sense, more so just, showing how students can work their way up in a sense, and sort of earn their way. And again, just like another roadblock again is like some of these kids too, because of how easy it is, essentially, where you can show up to most high schools with like a camera, and record the game for free in a sense. People are making, media companies or whatever, or even connections with the high school athletes. But
Yeah.
the challenge is just trying to keep all these kids humble in a sense, because as you can imagine, with social media getting bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
everybody's ego as well gets bigger as well, especially too when you have kids coming into college with tens of thousands of followers,
Mhm.
because they happen to have some top prospects, high school athletes in their area that they made videos of. So then,
Gotcha.
they think they should be able to come in day one and be able to film, whatever football and men's basketball games.
Mhm. And it's all about, like you said, working your way up, taking the opportunities as they come. You mentioned, you working in volleyball, something that a lot of kids didn't want to do, but you taking those opportunities, and that's kind of where led you to where you are today. And you've had so out of Ball State, you've had other stops as well, but before Mizzou, you had Bradley, I believe, then you went to Tulane, and so. Can you talk about kind of the biggest takeaway from those two stops as well? Kind of describe your time in those two areas and kind of what you learned and took away from that.
Yeah, I just think a common, saying in sports that I'm sure you could probably carry over too, Yash, just like know your role, right?
Hmm.
And my first job out, I was at North Carolina Greensboro. I was fortunate where there was a connection there where there was like a former Ball State alum, that was the sports information director there at the time. And then a couple people before I was there, in that video role. He was a Ball State alum as well. So that connection helped out there. But in a sense, I was a video production assistant. It was me and one other person. And then we had our boss who was the video coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have all these ideas from my experience that I learned at Ball State and whatnot, but in terms of dealing with like students and whatnot, but, whoever's in charge, it's on them to sort of, run the group in a sense. So I was able to see what did, what worked and what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, wherever you've been, there's little things you can learn from people in charge to help, make who you are as a leader in a sense. So there were some things I liked there, but also some things I thought I had the potential to do differently. So
Mm-hmm.
once my contract was up, I didn't decide to return. I ended up just going back home for a few months, and then a job at Bradley opened up online. I applied, and sort of what got me my foot in the door there was my relationships with the students, and just wanting to grow the student group.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier we talked about just like how I saw the student side at Ball State, right? But then I would say, even though I was at Greensboro for basically a year, I think once I was at Bradley, I really understood the difference between like the student side and the athletic side in a sense, when you're helping out with media. With the student side, it's a little more free flowing in a sense, and it's more so taking direction from the instructor, professor, whoever, with a little bit of feedback from athletics. But
Sure.
I think the perspective I've now like learned and just gained has been more so just seeing the messaging that the coach wants,
Mm-hmm.
hearing time to time what the student athletes like and don't like in the videos. But anyway, when I was at Bradley, then I was learning that, and then also too just building up the student group. And the big thing I noticed was just making time for them, reaching out, showing that I care. It's kind of tough, obviously, when you have to go. It's kind of tough sometimes when you go above and beyond in terms of, the 9 to 5 workday. Maybe you need to stay an extra couple hours because you've got some students that stay behind or that are available to meet. So I would try to do Monday meetings. I think it was like once a month. I forgot. It's been a little bit, but from there, I was really able to help build up the camaraderie in a
Mm-hmm.
sense where the students showed that they cared. They saw that I cared, and I think that was a big positive momentum there.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing the results of the group was awesome. Where once I left to go to Tulane,
Mm-hmm.
so when I was out of Bradley, the STA rankings came out, and Bradley was ranked number 13 in the country, which I thought was a big props to the senior group that we had there, which was, I think, the strongest class I've seen,
Yeah.
where, it was the kids that I worked with my freshman year or their freshman year all the way through their junior year. And then their senior year, I'm gone, but then they're sort of running the group on their own and they're out here, winning awards, which was really awesome to see and really fulfilling
Yeah. Sure.
on my end.
Yeah. And now you're at, obviously you said you mentioned there, you went to UNCG first, Bradley, Tulane, now you're at Mizzou. Can you talk about, and this is something I wanted to get from you, is kind of talk about your day to day. I think this is a lot of things, a lot of aspects I think people can learn from, is like, what's the day to day of what you do and kind of where you're at. So can you kind of talk us through kind of your day-to-day typical day overview of what it looks like for you as a director of creative video at
Oh
Mizzou?
yeah, for sure. I think that's also probably like one of the most popular questions I get too whenever I've been interviewing people, whether it was at Tulane or here at Mizzou,
Mm-hmm.
because it just changes so much though, and it's kind of hard to get like a concrete answer. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say generally from like August until May-ish, a lot of it's just like dealing with coaches' requests in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're working directly with the coach. Sometimes you're with
Yeah.
the sports information director, the SID,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing the messaging from the coach to you. So it's just sort of planning out your week each and every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the fun part of the job is when you have to go out and record interviews and shoot practice highlights or something where you get out of the office. That's always good. So I think in some part every single day you're working on a video in a sense, whether you're recording it, out in the field or you're sitting at your desk editing something.
Mm-hmm.
But also too something, as you just keep moving up in the world and where I'm at now, a lot of the too is just planning. And so something that I learned a lot at Bradley, 'cause I think that time was just so beneficial for me, just like the people I had above me helping guide me. I was able to learn, all right, the first year you got to go and just learn how everything's done right. Second year you can get out ahead. And the third year is when you really get your twist on everything, in a sense, because you know what's coming down the pike.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, a lot of it's just like, going out shooting, filming, editing, but then also just planning ahead of time too.
Mhm.
Whether, so an example, in August, like I'll be planning out the intro video for men's basketball, which we'll shoot in like September, late September, ideally, probably maybe early to mid October.
Gotcha.
And just the other things like that. So, whatever's in the moment, but then also planning ahead of time as well.
Got you. Got you. Planning is key. I mean, I teach here with my PhD. I'll be teaching moving forward planning. I know the whole planning aspect too is important from the video perspective as well. Very important in terms of planning things out. And I never used an Outlook calendar, Tim, till I got into my PhD. Now I use it religiously to figure out what dates and what times I need to be doing what. So it's the planning aspect. I totally connect on that with you as well. But throughout, like you said, you've had quite a bit of experiences throughout your career so far. And I know you mentioned earlier you're proud of kind of the students that you had, a senior group at Bradley. They've been winning awards and what they did. But what is, out of everything that you've been through at UNCG, Bradley, Tulane, now, Mizzou, is there anything, give me like one or two memorable moments or memorable things out of the experiences that you had?
Um, well, I mean, just overall, going off what you said with like Bradley, just being able to send out, students into the workplace with
Mhm.
full-time jobs. I think that's definitely
Yeah.
fulfilling in a
Mhm.
sense. Like, even if they're starting at, I don't know, some random minor league team, like that's
Yeah.
still awesome because you got your foot in the door, and then you can just sort of see from afar like how many different opportunities they keep getting as they climbing up the ladder.
Mhm.
And then now when I'm specifically doing creative video, like when they're able to get these intern type positions with professional teams and then turn that into like full-time jobs, that's been very fulfilling to see. But in
Gotcha.
terms of like specific things, I think it's especially at the platform that I have now at Mizzou is being able to really like have everything come together in a sense for certain videos. So I remember my first year, it was only a few months, I guess 4 months in, it came so fast. But when the men's basketball team ended up going to March Madness and just having a hype video narrated by Kobe Brown, who
Mhm.
ended up being a first round draft pick. It's been fun to see, but just seeing the positive feedback and all that, and just like how hyped people were,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's a video that people still talk to me about this day, which I just love. So I think
Mhm.
being able to have everything culminate and come together in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's definitely been one. And then I don't know, just again, more and more students being able to work full time.
Mhm.
Um, I think as I've been able to be somewhere for an extended period of time, more and more of these students are able to move on to bigger and better jobs, which is awesome to see.
Mhm.
So that's I love to see and follow along with, and of course help out as March rolls around when they start applying for jobs.
Gotcha. No, it's always a great feeling, and I love following your career, kind of seeing what you've been doing and going through that. You've impacted a lot of young people, and that's always very fulfilling. And you mentioned that a couple times here, but it's very fulfilling of the impact that you can have on young people and help them grow and help them get to that next level. It's great to see that. Great to see kind of the stuff that you have on social media. Like I said, I've been following your career since UNCG and kind of since Ball State, since we were together out there, and then from there. So it's great to kind of see kind of the impact that you've had on your students and kind of the impact that you have everywhere, every department that you've been in. So it's great to kind of witness that and see that. But before we end the episode here, I always give my guests a chance. The biggest reason I started this podcast was to help young people or aspire young people to kind of understand what it takes to work in sport or be like a D1 athlete or whatever, maybe whatever they want to do. And so my question to you would be is, if you were talking to young videographers, young sports aspiring videographers, potentially, what piece of advice would you give them to get to where you are now at Mizzou? What piece of advice, or is there a certain skill that you would tell them to like hone in on or better themselves in to get to where if they want to get to where you are today?
Well, first off, thanks for the kind words, Josh. Josh,
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. Because I know time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't
I,
realize all the people you come across, man. It's
yeah.
crazy how it adds up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess first off, because I know you tailored it to more so like what I do in a sense, but I do think going back to like what you're talking about with the student athlete side and becoming in Division 1, it's
Yeah.
something that I've learned like firsthand. Like it's the one thing when you're a student working, but like when you're full time around, these individuals all the time, you see like the amount of work that comes in, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of hard work to be a Division 1 student athlete, I think, and I know you definitely saw that at
For sure.
Northern Colorado and other stops you've been at, but.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that carries over to just where I'm at in a sense where it's just putting in the extra work in a sense. And so I
Mhm.
think we go back to one of your earlier questions where you talk about how I somehow made some third tier AAU team, right? Where I would
Yep.
practice all the time, whether I was like lifting, then another
Mhm.
day maybe I would practice and then take like a day or two off, right? But then I worked so hard where, I made this third tier AAU team, couldn't even make varsity, right? But the moment I made the team, I just stopped working out. I thought, all right, my whole day now is predicated on when I have practice in a sense, right?
Mhm.
And just seeing firsthand with these student athletes, whether they get to the gym at 7 a.m., 2, 3 hours ahead of a practice just to get shots up, or they're working out even after like a practice where they're, sweating and working hard.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just putting in a lot of extra work.
Mhm.
Um, and so earlier I talk about just, having like your own equipment and stuff like video wise, right? That's definitely gonna be necessary. But also too, if you get in to a program like we were fortunate enough in high school
Yep.
where you're able to have your hands on a camera or something,
Mhm.
seeing how you can use that above and beyond the classroom, or if you have to, stay late after class or something to do extra stuff. Because
Mhm.
usually I would say, teachers, professors are more than willing to let you do that. I know Chris Taylor was nice enough to let me use the sports link equipment for extra projects. So thank you again, CT.
Mhm.
But a lot of it's just, putting in that extra work, right? Like whether
Yeah.
you would in a sport or in a potential career path, right?
For sure.
And just sort of creating opportunities for yourself. Because I
Yep.
think what you're doing with this, Yash, like you said, and trying to, inspire like the youth in a sense, give them an idea. Like sometimes you just don't know,
Mhm.
right? Because I remember like I'm trying to think when I was like in
Well,
middle.
the
Oh yeah.
the other thing too is, especially with NIL now, like when I talk to high school kids, like like their whole conception of NIL, some of them like don't really understand what it is. So it's like just educating young people on kind of, hey, like what it takes to be, or what it does to, like you can't just walk into a Chipotle and ask for a free bowl because, oh, I'm a student athlete. Like there's so much more to that. And so like the podcast, or the goal of it was to just kind of, and I saw a lot of kids, high school kids and stuff, that they're like, my goal is to be this, but then I would see them, they're not in the gym, like they're not lifting, they're not coming to weights, they're not doing. So it's like, really the goal of the podcast was I wanted to bring on, people that I know that work in sport that can speak to kind of the how difficult, like you mentioned there, it's like it's very difficult to be a D1 athlete, and kind of what it takes to get to that level. And so seeing kind of how you've progressed and kind of where you are now, the director of creative video at a Power 5 SEC school, just kind of seeing kind of, I mean, you've worked extremely hard to get to where you are, and so that's kind of like where I'm like, what, is there one skill or something that young people can take away, that if they want to get to that level where they can be.
It probably just had to be persistence, right?
Yeah.
Because like I know too, like something is like I mentioned earlier, like for the most part, most high schools are going to let you, come in a sense, right? And
Yeah.
I tried filming Arch Manning his senior year of high school. This is only a few years ago when I was in New Orleans
Yeah.
for like an outside company,
Mhm.
and since the high school didn't know that company, they didn't let me go in for that. But I was able to get him on the basketball court for, another basketball company I freelanced for.
Got you.
So it doesn't matter, how high you work your way up in a sense, right? Like you said, getting to, Power 5 SEC Division 1, that doesn't mean every opportunity, I have is at my feet now, because there's still stuff I'm going to get turned down from
Mhm.
for time to time. But um, it relates back to just me, applying to want to film random high school games, right? And then there's like big tournaments that I got denied from.
Mhm.
And then eventually I'm getting into those tournaments, and just keep working my way up in a sense. So I would just say persistence
Yeah.
from the video side.
Yep.
And if you want to get technical, with the video side, I would just say, just learning how to just film in a sense and compose a shot, because there's always going to be people wanting just B-roll in general, right? There's never enough. So I think that's somewhere it starts with too, from the technical side, just knowing how to compose a shot.
Yep. Oh, that's good advice. Technical and just persistence applies to video, applies to, like you said, sport. It applies to so many different things. You're not always going to get what you want. You got to be persistent enough to get to where you are, and that's what you've done. I admired you for that. I admire you for that, and from what you've done in your career and so far, and now like I said, I'm going to continue to follow you and check out kind of the stuff and cool stuff that you're doing over there at Mizzou moving forward. But
And we'll stay in contact, of course, too, Yash. I know we reach out from time to time. So yeah.
We will for sure. It's always great to talk to you. And again, that's why I felt like this was perfect to be able to connect with you on this level and be able to chop it up. But that's all the time we have for this episode of the Athlete Insights podcast. Again, I want to thank Tim for coming on and spending some time talking about his career, reflecting on his career and whatnot. But you can follow Tim on social media. I'll have your social media handles up on the video. I'll have mine as well. You can follow our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much everywhere you get podcasts. You can get this one. But Tim, appreciate you again for hopping on and chopping it up with me. But we'll see you next time.